Good evening, I'm Alicia Malone and this is TCM, where we have arrived at our final night of our spotlight on the history of science fiction. And we are going out with a big bang, a lineup of some of the most popular sci-fi films in the history of the genre. So let's begin our night with Mr. Steven Spielberg. From 1977, it's Close Encounters of the Third Kind. Richard Dreyfuss stars as a power company employee who experiences a UFO sighting while investigating a power blackout, and he becomes obsessed with what he has seen, scaring his family with his unhinged behaviour and having visions of a mysterious mountain. Spielberg made this film after the huge success of his 1975 thriller Jaws, but our story is actually based on a movie he created when he was young called Firelight. And Close Encounters remains an anomaly in Spielberg's career because he wrote the screenplay completely by himself, and it must have been tough because that has never happened again. Apparently, director Francois Truffaut rewrote some of his own dialogue. You'll see him playing a French UFO expert. Spielberg had asked several French actors to take on the role before remembering that Truffaut had acted in several of his own movies, including the 1973 film Day for Night. So Spielberg asked, and surprisingly, Truffaut said oui to this Hollywood blockbuster. On set, Truffaut was given an office so he could continue writing his next movie, The Man Who Loved Women, and Truffaut apparently thought this film was very childish and told Spielberg he should make a film with kids because, quote, "you are a kid yourself." And a few years later, that's exactly what Spielberg did with 1982's E.T. All right, get out those mashed potatoes. It's time for Close Encounters of the Third Kind.
I was thrilled to be in Close Encounters of the Third Kind. One of my more interesting and wonderful experiences. I lied to get into the movie. In the first place, I had been called in by Stephen and Julia Phillips and had to have a meeting to play the part of the interpreter who interprets everything for the character of Lacombe in the movie.
Can you translate French into English and English into French?
Yes, I explained to the team leader in Villa Hermosa. I'm just a little taken by surprise. It's all
Monsieur Laughlin?
Laughlin.
Oh, Laughlin, pardon.
And they said, Bill, basically, how's your French? We hear you speak French. And I said, well, il y avait beaucoup d'années depuis que j'ai parlé français. Si vous me donnez ce boulot, ce sera très difficile pour moi. Which means it's been many years since I've spoken French, and if you give me this job, it's going to be very difficult for me.
Monsieur Nery, please, one more question. N'avez-vous pas fait récemment une rencontre?
Have you recently had a close encounter?
Une rencontre plutôt inhabituelle?
A close encounter with something very unusual. Who are you people?
But nobody there spoke French, and I got the job. And later on, when they threw the script at me and said, here, you just translate everything, I was like, oh, I went to Berlitz and I boned up very, very quickly. So, that was a staggering thing. Got to stand next to Francois Truffaut for 7 months and basically had a running conversation with one of my favorite people in movies.
After watching a whole slew of sci-fi films to write my scripts for this spotlight, that ending of Close Encounters stands out to me because unlike the fear and paranoia of aliens we see in the films from the 1950s, here there's just childlike wonder and magic, and it's the US government who are the ones with the ulterior motives. And I don't know if you caught it because it's really hard to see, but when the mothership leaves the Earth, underneath the ship is R2-D2 hitching a ride into outer space. That was Spielberg's nod to his good buddy, George Lucas. And if R2-D2 is the droid you are looking for, then keep watching because we have Lucas's first Star Wars adventure coming up for you next, right here on TCM.